And for the first time in a long time, we came together as a nation. And things that we thought were hard, that we couldn't do, all of a sudden were doable. And those political divides between different political parties didn't seem so big. And all of a sudden there was political consensus in Canada about the path forward. And one of them was that we had to get our own house in order, that we had to be more cooperative amongst ourselves when it came to trading, and that we need to build up business within Canada, not only through exports to the United States. Bill 47 is a slap in the face to all of that. And I'll get into it more, because I think it reduces what should have been a feel-good, cooperative, everybody in this chamber voting for the same thing event, turned it into a petty, cynical political stunt. So the Premier stands up there and he basically says, Donald Trump is right. We need to do what Donald Trump says. And I quote, Canada needs to do the things being asked of it if he wants to avoid those scenarios. So that was his initial response, was panic, fear, and docile compliance. There was no elbows up. There was no standing up for Manitoba, because the Premier didn't stand up for Manitoba, and he didn't put the facts on the record. So Manitoba was not a pipeline, either for illegal immigration or for fentanyl trafficking. Did the Premier stand up for Manitoba? No. He used Manitoba money. This last budget, he spent $5 million, borrowed it because we didn't have it, borrowed $5 million to apparently our conservation officers, because they have nothing to do, are supposed to drive around the border looking for illegal aliens. There has not been one reported case of any conservation officer arresting, detaining any sort of illegal migrants in that border. So what are we getting for that $5 million that we borrowed other than a press release? So the Premier for the past 18 months knew Donald Trump was coming, knew what he was all about, and all of a sudden didn't have a plan in place about safeguarding Manitoba, our economy, and a trade strategy. We do not have a trade strategy in Manitoba. We still do not. It's not even been announced. Doesn't even seem that that's a priority for the province. So there's no attempt to diversify our markets and make us less reliant on US or China. Other provinces, smaller provinces, Saskatchewan actually puts us to shame. They have international trade offices in various key places in the world, and they've had for years. Everybody in this legislature supports this piece of legislation. It's not what's in it, it's how it's being done. If this government was serious about it, they would have introduced this bill in March, and it would be law come Monday. But they were not serious about it. It was not even on their radar until a couple weeks ago, quite frankly. And then now what we have is a government who is, again, for one man's benefit, so that he has something to say at a press conference on Monday, is now trying to bully this legislature, right? Trying to hold this legislature hostage. There are rules in this legislature. And if you get your bill in before the designated bill date, well, then you're going to be able to get that bill passed. But if you don't get your bill in on time, then now you have to work with the other parties in the House, because those are the rules that everybody agreed to. Those are the rules that we all agreed to. And you have to follow those rules. There's a culture here that even if the other side agrees with you and everybody's in agreement, you can't let your opposition get a victory in the House because, oh my God, they're doing their job, and what would Manitobans think? Right? And that type of toxic hyper-partisanship is poisoning this chamber. Manitobans expect more from us. They expect us to do better. This would have been one of those situations where there was no shame in the government giving the opposition a win, because it isn't the opposition winning, it's Manitobans winning. But when the government engages in this petty, cynical, stunts and gamesmanship, we all lose. And it's enough for Manitobans to not trust politicians. Well, it's because of things like this. Let's talk about the Buy Manitoba ad campaign. It's gone now. I wonder if anyone remembers it. It was only a couple weeks. And then, of course, the province was going to buy Canadian. You remember that one? Because we're really mad at Donald Trump and his oligarch friends. And so we say to Elon Musk, we're not going to have our EV rebates for your vehicles. But guess what, Elon Musk? We got no problem with Starlink. And we're going to still contract with Starlink. And Manitoba won't do anything about canceling its Starlink contract. But EV rebates, that's a different thing. So the Canoe government also claims that we're going to bar U.S. companies from our procurement contracts. But we heard recently in this House that actually wasn't the case. And there was large, multi-million-dollar sole source contracts to U.S. software companies from Manitoba. They didn't even look for a Canadian company to hire them. Again, make that make sense. We need to do more for our small businesses, our small producers, and we can support them in this process. And of course, I think some people have mentioned professional licensing is a big thing. As a lawyer, I'm licensed to practice all across Canada except in the province of Quebec, but many professions can't, especially many healthcare professions, and we would benefit greatly from that. And of course, the last area is government procurement, and that cuts both ways. I was driving up to Thompson, and I was going into town, and the road was getting repaired. All the work trucks had Alberta license plates on them. And we had brought in an Alberta construction crew to fix a Manitoba road in one of the most economically depressed areas of the province. And obviously the thought is, well, why can't we have Manitoba workers building Manitoba roads? And so that's the tension here, and that's the discussion we need to have about how we can be free traders while protecting our small businesses and protecting our small producers at the same time. And that would be a more useful use of our time in this chamber than does the Premier get to have another political stunt on Monday.